All guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 brought to us by the official beer of the program. Of course, that's Johnny Cuba. European roots with that Caribbean soul. Grab a refreshing German lager in a can. You pick up a six-pack, your local Sedanos, Presidente, Winn-Dixie, Fresco y Mas. You can go to johnnycuba.us, use the Johnny Locator, find the nearest location to you. And, of course, always drink responsibly. And don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. So the big story, Copa America last night, Hard Rock Stadium, what a disaster. Our pal, of course, is ESPNFC's Luis Miguel Echegaray joining us here. Nobody covers Lionel Messi better than Luis Miguel. Always love having you on the show here. So first off, let's talk about Messi, and then we'll get to the extracurricular stuff that happened last night at the stadium. Messi, you see him, he's taken out of the game. He's crying hysterically. I mean, Luis Miguel, that's because he knows that, wow, my last time representing my country is being helped off the field. Is that what that was last night?
I think, Jonathan, it was a combination of a lot of things. Lionel Messi, whether that was his first game as a teenager or his last one, he always wants to be on the pitch. He always wants to play. He always wants to help his team, whether it's Argentina or any other club that he has played for, or even when he was younger. So part of it was that, right? He knew that at that point the game was not won, and he wanted to do everything possible to do it. The other part was, I mean, that ankle was like a massive mushroom, man. That was swollen. So he really, really hurt himself. So as we are taping, as we're talking, we still have to wait to see the extremities of that injury. So that's the other part of it. And yes, I think the other part of it is the emotional component, as you said it. Was this his final performance with Argentina in a major tournament? Because obviously they still play World Cup qualifiers, etc. So that's a question for him. Only he can answer that. Turned 37 years old during Copa America, of course. So it's all a combination of everything. And also, I know we're going to talk about it, but the tumultuous way that this final presented itself, there was just so many things that were aligning themselves for Messi just to really be emotional, because he's always been an emotional player, no matter what age, as I've said. So really, it was the injury, the fact that he couldn't continue helping his teammates. Lionel Scaloni, the manager, said it, and also, is this one of my final moments? So all of it really just, took him in. It was a lot to handle for sure.
We saw this last year when he first got here with Inter Miami, and his first appearances were Leagues Cup games and US Cup games. And we saw how important it is to him, how much it means to him, how hard he was playing, the way he celebrates with his teammates. And so we immediately here in South Florida got the sense of, wow, this guy who's accomplished everything, he still really cares, and he really loves the competition. And I think that right there last night, it goes to show he's got nothing left to prove to anyone, but it still means something to him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the makeup of Messi, and I think that's what makes him so unique. And to me, in my opinion, the greatest player the game has ever seen, because he's not really concerned with the silverware or statistics, even though they are ridiculous. In fact, that Copa America title extends his streak as the most decorated footballer of all time with 45 trophies. He doesn't care about any of that. He wants to win with this team, by the way, who he sees as a family, the Argentina national team. Like, he loves them so much and they love him. So to him, that's all that matters, whether it's Inter Miami, Argentina, Barcelona before that, even PSG. He just wants to play. He wants to win, and that's what makes him a champion.
How much more time do you think he has left? Obviously, he's got the last half of this MLS season. Whenever he's ready to return, hopefully he returns not too long with that ankle injury. How many more seasons do you think he has left?
I don't know. They've been, every time you ask him that question, there is never a certainty, specifically this last time around in the last few weeks when he was asked about that, he was like, my body is going to tell me when I can't do it. And I honestly can't give you an exact date, but he's definitely referencing to the fact that it's getting closer than further away for him, saying goodbye to the game, which will obviously be, one of the saddest days, I think, as well. But, let's put this into context, right? He turned 37 during this Copa America tournament. And as you mentioned, he still wants to help Inter Miami win MLS Cup, which would be a historic achievement. So I think he wants to value that. He still has this season. Then he has an option to extend for another season. Then Miami Freedom Park, the stadium itself, the new stadium as well. I think he probably wants to be a part of that. And then obviously helping Argentina qualify for the World Cup in 2026. And then 2026. I mean, he'll be 40 years old, man. Like, it's, can he do it? I mean, he's going to do everything possible, I'm sure, because he's just so in love with the game. He's obsessed with it, but his body's going to tell him. But I'm hoping that we might be able to say he could maybe do this 2026 World Cup, but, don't count on me on that, because every time you ask him about it, he's getting closer to saying, this is my goodbye.
Now, Luis Miguel is here in South Florida right now. He's been here for the last few weeks, but neither of us went to the match last night. Both of us are grateful we didn't go to the match last night. First, let's deal with who was in charge last night, and then essentially, I guess, who's to blame for everything that happened. Because I'll tell you, Luis Miguel, you know this. Hard Rock Stadium has hosted international events, Super Bowls, F1, major concerts. They've never had an issue like this. Why did last night's events take place?
An absolute abomination of an evening. And let's begin with the pure facts here. CONMEBOL, the South American Confederation that's responsible for Copa America, is responsible for organizing the whole event, including last night's final. They work in partnership with security, with local forces there in Miami-Dade, South Florida, of course, and as you mentioned, Hard Rock Stadium and what they can provide. But CONMEBOL are the organizers. It's not the U.S. Soccer Federation. It's not FIFA. They're responsible for the World Cups. It's CONMEBOL. And yesterday, the very first level of responsibility goes with them. And as you mentioned, Jonathan, I've been here for a few weeks. I didn't go to the final. I wasn't needed because my excellent colleagues at ESPN were there already. But I have gone there for the other two matches with Uruguay, Panama, and Argentina and Peru. And I've gone to Hard Rock before as well. And as you mentioned, like Super Bowls, Formula One, by the way, which requires an incredible level of security as well, because it's outside of the stadium and they have never seen anything like that. And that falls to CONMEBOL's responsibility of making sure that nothing as crazy, as horrific what happened last night happened. And it did. And part of the reason is, and let's set the scene here, from 3 p.m., you're meant to have, this warning saying, get to the stadium early. If you have tickets, let's go. From 5 p.m., the gates were meant to be open. Kickoff was meant to be at 8 p.m., right? But what happens, for those that don't I know your local listeners and viewers know that Hard Rock Stadium is sort of kind of perfectly built to make sure that you have multiple checkpoints. They did it for Formula One. They've done it in the past as well, and I really feel that one of the biggest issues yesterday was that didn't happen. So what happened is people that didn't have tickets got as close as they possibly could to the ground. And then this is thousands and thousands. And obviously the minimum capacity for an NFL stadium, 60,000. It was way more than that, just trying to push in. And that all falls with CONMEBOL. You should have anticipated that, because guess what? It's not the first time this has happened. And guess what? We've already seen scenes of violence and things like that with Uruguay and Colombia, of course. And also in the past, Argentina, Brazil. So this was just a ridiculous thing. So yes, obviously Hard Rock Stadium suffers as a result of it. We've seen obviously the damage and the horrific scenes of kids crying and everything like that, and not being able to make it into the stadium. But this falls to the responsibility of CONMEBOL 100%.
I just don't understand, and I know they gave out warnings ahead of time saying, if you don't have tickets, do not come to the stadium. All right. I don't understand the people who don't have tickets. You're telling me they just decided, okay, we're going to try and break through the gates, and we're going to try and get in even though we don't have tickets. That was actually their mindset?
Yeah, so this is something that people need to understand, especially in the world of football. This happens everywhere, all over the world. It's not limited to South America. It's not limited to Latin America. It's everywhere. People are so obsessed and passionate about trying to see their game, even without a ticket, they want to do it. It is not right. It is absolutely not right. Obviously, it's the wrong thing to do, but it happens. We live in a world where there are decent people and people that just mess up. And this is not limited just to one particular region or culture. This is everybody. And yesterday was a massive example of that. And yeah, and here's the other thing, by the way, like, and this is what I wanted folks to understand before the tournament even started. Copa America, it's a South American tournament, but in the United States, there's a huge, massive diaspora of Latin Americans, right? From all different types of ages and backgrounds, exactly. More than nearly 300,000 Colombian Americans live around the South Florida area, way more than Argentinians. Like, so you're just thinking about all, and I'm not even talking about the people that are flying in. Like, so all this massive community of people, whether they have a ticket or not, they just want to be part of the atmosphere. And yes, it's not right. But guess what? It happens. And this is my point. CONMEBOL knows this. They are familiar with this. It's happened over and over again. So really, you should have anticipated this and be way more disciplined. Whatever you think it was going to be way, way worse. And guess what? It happened. So like, it's a massive, massive issue, because guess what? If you don't have a ticket, unfortunately, we live in the sad reality of the world where people are idiots and they make mistakes and they do silly things. The organizers have to be better equipped for those situations.
I think, you know, also to further your point, I think, and we love American football in this country. We're crazy about it, you know, but I think yesterday we got a real glimpse here that football fans, soccer fans, it's a different animal than than we know in this country.
Yeah, it is. It is. And part of it is a beautiful part of it. The optimistic, the good side of it is that it's called a beautiful game. It's called the world's game because everybody just loves it. You only need a ball and a space to play it. This country is already being intoxicated and enamored with the sport itself. Like, young people everywhere are playing it. Like, it's just beautiful to see. But with everything comes also a dark side, which is like, people again are idiots and they make silly mistakes and they make unjust mistakes. And because it's such a popular sport, you're going to see a tremendous amount of people sometimes do the wrong thing. Like yesterday, it is down to the organizers and the people that host these events that are making a lot of money out of it to make sure that the people that really deserve to be there, because there's so many stories about people paying $2,000 a ticket, which is just ridiculous, and they couldn't get in because everybody that was breaking the rules got in instead. And that's not fair. There's going to be stupid people all the time, everywhere, no matter where you go. The point is that the organizers and people that are hosting these events take care of the people that do follow the rules, and that's not what happened yesterday.
So like you said, you believe the blame goes toward the organizers, CONMEBOL. So do we have to be worried about the World Cup here in 2 years then?
Well, the World Cup is hosted by FIFA, so it's a completely different confederation. Having said that, there is something to be said about making sure that these stadiums, Hard Rock Stadium, I mean, you mentioned others as well, and we can talk about AT&T and Bank of America in North Carolina, though that's already a Charlotte FC stadium. Even Mercedes-Benz, or if you go down to the West Coast, Kansas City, they do Arrowhead, etc. Like, FIFA is looking at this tournament and making sure we cannot allow this to happen at all. So from a purely organizational perspective, FIFA is responsible for the World Cup. This is a CONMEBOL tournament, but there are lessons to be learned. From now, a U.S. soccer perspective, like you mentioned, just from people that work in these stadiums, that run these stadiums, that obviously are the homes, like Hard Rock being the home to the Miami Dolphins, etc. They really have to make sure now to understand just exactly what's going to happen in 2026. This is not a Super Bowl, my friend. This is like a million Super Bowls in one summer. This is a massive, massive thing, and it's a global event, and it's the biggest men's World Cup ever. So like, it's very important for everybody to really be in tangent and understand what's going on, because it's not just down to the stadium organizers, it's down to the main event organizer making sure that there's constant communication and everybody saying, get ready, because this is something unprecedented.
Luis Miguel, let me sneak in a Team USA question here. Head coach, what are we hearing? What's the direction they should go in?
Well, so Greg Berhalter obviously is gone, as you mentioned, and now the big question and the big responsibility, and in my opinion, the biggest yet, because one of the obstacles for the United States men's national team, actually, which may seem like an advantage, but I actually see it as a hindrance, is that they don't have to qualify for the Men's World Cup in 2026, and with that limits competition, right? You really need to make sure that now you test yourself. So now you need a manager that really continues to understand both the domestic makeup of U.S. soccer, right? What's going on in MLS, etc., and at the same time understand the identity of what it takes to take on the big super powerhouses, right? If you really want to make it, you have to compete against the likes of Spain or France or Morocco, or these teams that really show what they can do at big tournaments. So you need a manager that has that. So there's two ways that you can go about it, right? Two ways that the U.S. Soccer Federation can go. You either really stick with the, they have to be, or maybe we're leaning towards a U.S.-born manager, right? Or maybe, once again, return to a foreign manager. In my opinion, where you're born doesn't matter. You just have to really understand those two things: the makeup of the domestic development in this country and understand what it takes to beat the big teams. So at ESPN, with myself and some great colleagues, we did a list of like 16 candidates of who could be these people. And you've got many names. I've got named somebody like Wilfred Nancy, for example, the Columbus Crew manager. I know Columbus Crew fans will hate me for saying his name, but he is a tremendous talent who is not American born, understands the domestic game, but also understand the competitive nature of what it means to win. Because my other thing, Jonathan, by the way, is that one of my biggest pet peeves, not even a pet peeve, but one of the biggest criticisms for me about the USMNT is that they're so great, they're very talented, but they're kind of like a frat house. They're very comfortable. They need to learn how to be uncomfortable. And I feel Wilfred Nancy could be one. Everybody wanted Jurgen Klopp. That's not going to happen. He wants a break. He wants a sabbatical. But I like the ambition, though. That's how ambitious you have to be. So I encourage everybody to check out on that list. There's some great lists out there, but we'll have to wait and see. It's a massive responsibility for the U.S. Soccer Federation to find out their new manager, because they can't get it wrong this time around.
Nobody covers what's going on soccer better than Luis Miguel Echegaray. And also, I mean, he's one of my favorites because just like me, he is a huge Pearl Jam fan.
Massive.
So Luis Miguel, Dark Matter, the last album, do you love it?
I love it. I absolutely love it. It's so good. I think Waiting for Stevie is actually a historical classic already. I love it. I think it brings back a little bit of that 90s grunge, man. And yeah, I'm just waiting. I am hoping, I'm praying that I can see them at MSG in September, just like you. And I'm absolute obsessed Pearl Jam fan. My wife tells me to just stop talking about them so much. That's how much I love it. But yeah, I love them so much, and I love them.
Our wives are on the same page. I told her a few days ago, listen, I think I'm going up to Fenway. We're going to go to their show. She's like, it's enough already. I got to keep seeing them. They're 60 years old. I don't know how much longer it's going to be, Luis Miguel.
Exactly, man. Let me tell you something. I don't care what anybody says. They're the greatest ever band in the history of music. Full stop.
Right. That's right. They're the Messi of rock music. That's right.
There you go.
Luis Miguel Echegaray, always love having you on the show. Thank you so much. Keep up the great work, of course.
Thanks so much, my man.